But so this is my second edition of a rambling Highlander, and you really do realise when you do things like this just how much of an illusion time truly is, because you're sort of cautious of time, you don't want to make it too long, etc, etc, but before you know it, you are several minutes in and you've not even got to half of what you intended to speak about point wise. That said, I'm at Loch Ness today, finished work a wee while ago, thought I would take a wee stroll out with my dog, who is in fact right there. And I wanted to talk about two things today actually, that sort of tie into each other, through no fault of my own, you know. First being Scottish quote-unquote independence, so because in the news we're hearing, oh, it's the anniversary of Brexit, and every single media publication is pretty much printing the same pish pertaining to the EU referendum result in a Scottish context, you know, drag that against our will. But how it ties into something else that I've seen just today. So I just want to add a slight caveat, as the wind picks up a bit here, that I truly hope that this video can be heard when it's finished, because, you know, I don't have professional equipment, I'm using my phone to record this. I truly hope that the wind doesn't sort of block out what I'm trying to say too much. There was a slight breeze when I got here, but it does appear as if the weather's changing over there. Urquhart Castle was just literally over there, where my thumb is now, and just to the right of that, and to the left of that, there is rain approaching. So, Scottish independence I'll come to after I get to something that I read today, a document called Target 2030. Now I might make a video on this in due course, I might even talk about it on a stream, who knows. Target 2030 came out in the last few days, courtesy of the Scottish Government, as always. And it was basically predicated on curriculum reformation. Scottish academia is on the cusp of being quote-unquote reformed yet again. The curriculum of excellence is seeing a curriculum of excellence, or for excellence 2.0. Now, one of the things that they intend to do, along with, you know, scrapping 4-year exams, etc, etc, is really accelerate the implementation of all of their social justice causes into academia. Not that there wasn't enough already, but oh no, we need more. So Target 2030, this document, specifically speaks about learning for sustainability. Learning for sustainability, of course, is Agenda 2030/21, same thing, of course. And within this document, they speak about Professor Ken Moore, who we've spoken about on stream before in the past, and he did this in sort of investigations, a study into what needs to be done, etc, etc. One of the things he spoke about was social justice. The usual sort of tropes that we're accustomed to at this point, but they all have sinister, malevolent undertones. But anyway, before I digress any further, so Target 2030 is sort of really enshrining into education going forward, learning for sustainability. Two key points of this document that I picked up on rather quickly, and I posted this on my Telegram, and I haven't gone through the document in length, or at length even, but the first one, and I'm paraphrasing here admittedly, suggested that because of climate change and global issues, this is why we need learning for sustainability. The more that this is incorporated into academia, the quicker we can solve these quote-unquote crises such as climate change, right? And then the second point of contention that I had with this document was the fact that they said that adults, meaning teachers, needed to know more about learning for sustainability in order to take this into the classrooms, etc. These people felt, the people that took part in the research and whatnot, felt that adults needed to know more about learning for sustainability and the concept of sustainability in order to take it into classrooms. Now, admittedly, I am paraphrasing to a certain extent, right? But the principle still remains. So effectively what that second point that I just raised there is suggesting is re-education. Teachers need to know all about the concepts of sustainability and all it encompasses, such as global citizenship, etc., in order to then be able to teach this to children. The document Target 2030 is targeted at all learning environments from 3 years old to 18. So learning for sustainability, just like many other concepts, in Scotland, educationally speaking, all focus on children as young as possible. Let that sink in. 3-year-old. You know, who voted for this? Seriously, who voted for learning for sustainability? Who voted for social justice? Who voted for equity to be spoken about? Racial justice, gender justice, feminism, LGBT, etc, etc. Who votes for these concepts? Which brings me sort of full circle into the second point. All the papers at present are talking about climate change. Not climate change, sorry. Brexit. Well, they are speaking about climate change, but that's a story for another day. Brexit and how it's fucked up Scotland, completely negating the fact that the second Brexit was allegedly implemented, right? Implemented at the end of 2019, going into 2020, then a few months later there was a global pandemic, printing money, etc, destroying the economy. But let's explain Brexit, right? But my point is this. They are speaking to no end about Brexit and how Scotland was dragged out against our will. Right, the usual pish, in order to sort of crawl back some votes and whatnot. And it just got me thinking, with the previous point I raised about Target 2030 amongst many other things, these so-called champions of democracy, I don't really hear them standing up at their podiums when it comes to election day to advocate for this policy, as well as many others. The issue being, of course, that climate change, amongst other things, there's a global consensus that these are crises, so irrespective of which party you vote for, you're going to get the same shit, which really does call into question what's the point of voting, or what's the point of supporting one over the other, right? But anyway, to get back to my point, independence in Scotland, right? First and foremost, it's not even independence, is it? Right? It's first and foremost, it's not. Now, whether or not you are a supporter of the European Union, you wish to rejoin, or whatever, or whether or not you're against that, that is irrelevant. Stop calling leaving the UK to rejoin the European Union independence, okay? It's not. It never has been. It's ridiculous to assume so. It's ridiculous to say so, okay? You know, I could get into the ins and outs of 2016 and 2015 going into 2016 and all the shite that was spouted by every single politician who was relevant at such a time, speaking about all the promises that would happen in the event of getting Brexit and all the shit that was thrown the other way. But what really sticks out to me is the SNP and how they have managed to get completely away with the lies that they have espoused during this time. Every other party is deemed as treacherous, as malevolent, manipulative, deceptive, but the SNP managed to obtain this sort of reputation that allows them to smell of roses despite the fact they stink as shite. 2016, Nicola Sturgeon herself came out and told the Scottish public that in the event, in order for them to see a second independence referendum, they needed to vote to remain in the EU. In the event of the UK leaving the EU, there would be no second referendum. That was her words, not mine. Right? How many people voted because of that? How many people voted accordingly? Who knows? But the point is, they did play a part in sort of artificially inflating the votes, because many people in this country, albeit not all, vote accordingly because they want a referendum. Right? So they voted thinking, we will vote to remain, tactical voting, and then we might see a referendum for independence in the future. Since that time, all we have seen is the SNP manipulate and sort of intertwine independence with EU renewal, with the trope being thrown out repeatedly, Scotland was dragged out against their will. How can you say that with a straight face when you don't know how many people in Scotland voted to remain in the EU because of what you said pertaining to independence? But since that time, where they use every election cycle to talk about the EU, every election cycle to blame all of Scotland's woes on Westminster and or Brexit, right? Every single election cycle to talk about independence. All of this shit is in the background. How often do you hear about this? Who voted for 20-minute neighbourhoods? Who voted for the National Performance Framework Part 4, the NPF 4, I think it's called? Who voted for the LGBT education? Who voted for climate change education? Who voted for equity to be spoken about? Who voted for building racial literacy to be implemented in our schools? Who voted for all of these concepts? Who voted for curriculum reform? Right? And the argument could be put forth. It could be put forth that it's hidden within the small print of their manifestos. Half of the time it's fucking not, may I add. But this part goes into a sort of larger problem. They don't have to write it in manifestos because it comes down to the fact that many of these issues, that these policies and these reformations pertaining to the curriculum, etc., are there for in the first place is to solve what they claim are crises that are there's a global consensus or a political consensus, right? Oh, we need learning for sustainability because we need to achieve the sustainable development goals. Who voted for that? Oh, we need to do more because women are oppressed, right? Global consensus, whatever. Who voted for that? People vote for independence year in, year out, year in, year out. And it is nothing more than a national distraction. Nothing more. Because in the background, this is what is happening. Target 2030. Who voted for that? Who? It's a joke. I mean, this building racial literacy stuff is getting out of hand. It's not the only thing. You know. It's absolutely not the only thing. You know, I wonder to myself if my sort of identity is redundant at this point, and I'm not talking about my ethnic makeup, I'm talking about Scottish independence, Scottish nationalism. Because well and truly I would say I'm an old school Scottish nationalist in the sense that I should go without saying, I don't need to say white nationalist or ethnic nationalist. Scottish first. Scotland for the Scottish. Right? I'm anti-union in general. I'm anti-Westminster. I'm anti-EU, absolutely. But how much of the Scottish nationalists that you see today resemble the one of old? How many of them scream and cry out to see the end of the UK as well as the EU? They don't. How many of them have accepted that Target 2030, learning for sustainability, etc., are all just compatible and synonymous with independence? Or is this another example of wheesht for independence? A concept that's fucking redundant in many respects. Independence. There is no independence in what's been advocated for, if it ever happens. All it is leaving the UK to become a bitch to the European Union, where you don't vote in what you want, you don't vote for who you want, no, you get policy passed down by unelected fucking bureaucrats, which is kind of funny in many respects because it's the same arguments that SNP dickheads make about Westminster that could be applicable to EU renewal. It's funny how it works. My poor boy. I'm going to listen to me ramble. Target 2030, you know. I don't know. You vote for the SNP because you want independence, right? You don't even know the definition of independence at this point. But on top of that, you don't get your independence, okay? Rightfully or wrongfully, you're not going to get it. Or you're not going to get a referendum anyway. But what do you get in its place? So I guess the question is this wheesht for independence, right? Target 2030, LGBT, all this shit. Do you agree with it? Then you're not a Scottish nationalist. Do you know about it? Educate yourself. Do you disagree with it, but you still vote SNP because you want independence? Educate yourself. It's bigger fish to fry. Every country's facing the same issues, but Scotland seems to be on a fucking another planet. Next level. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? No, dragged against our will. All we hear about. I don't hear any of the mainstream media talking about the issues that matter. All of these initiatives, sneaking in the back door while everybody is distracted about the Tories are to blame for this, Westminster's to blame for this, and the SNP tugging at your heartstrings and blaming the Tories for everything. And the media play their part too. It's just peculiar in this country how things work. The media allow the SNP to revise history. They're never really challenged on any of the shit that they're implementing. And as for the opposition in Parliament, it is the most pathetic shit show that I've ever seen. Westminster's yeah, jeering and whatnot is hard enough to listen to, but it is just repulsive in the Scottish Parliament. Every party sits back and says fuck all, right? And there's a funny saying that lefties always use: white silence is violence, or violent silence is violence, just in general without the white caveat at the start, right? Same could be said for all of these parties who are allegedly opposition to the SNP but allow them to do this. Target 2030, wheesht for independence.